I got Jeff Lund here today. He's previously a franchise owner of Goosehead Insurance. He broke off into his own insurance agency. He's now with Bettr Insurance.
Bettr Insurance,
And I wanted to bring him in today to talk roofing, talk insurance, talk homeowner stuff. And basically, Jeff, if you can tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into the insurance world, that'll help get us a good start.
Yeah, Sean, first off, I want to thank you for having me on here. I was with Goosehead Insurance. I bought a franchise with them, about 5 years ago or so. I had it for about two and a half years or so, and really kind of learned the industry, learned the business, and learned a lot about insurance. And then I also learned one thing about how I wanted to do things and how I wanted my clients to be treated, and how I think that they should be treated. And with the franchise model didn't really give me a whole lot of flexibility to do things on how I wanted to. So at that point, I decided to go ahead and sell that franchise and decided to open up my own brokerage. And then that way I could really kind of lead my course and do things the way that I needed to make sure that my clients were in the best position, to make sure that they were really taken care of.
That's awesome. And so, what makes a big name carriers or big name franchises different than smaller brokerages or up and coming brokerages?
Yeah, so one difference between me is I'm an actual true independent broker. So I use many different carriers. I use a lot of the big names, and I use a lot of the guys that a lot of people may not have really ever heard of, but they've also been around for a long time.
That brings me to another question. What's a big difference between the big name carriers that you see and some of the smaller ones that you haven't heard much about?
You know what? There's really not a lot of difference, but a lot of your big names like State Farm and Farmers and Allstate, a lot of these guys, right? Everybody's heard of them, and they've been on TV, Super Bowl ads, and every time you turn on a football game or the TV, you see one of those commercials, right? Well, all that advertising costs money. Where does that money come from, right? That money comes from typically policyholders. They've got to pay for it somehow. Compared to a lot of your other smaller companies, the names that people may not have heard of, they've been around just as long, and they're just as good. The difference is they require us to do all of the advertising and getting their name out there for them. So they're not using your money to advertise their name. They're relying on us to do that. And so in turn, typically, they usually have lower premiums also.
Lower premiums, maybe higher claim values?
They do, yeah. And, as far as customer service goes, there's still great customer service.
Awesome. So what's some of the biggest mistakes homeowners make when buying homeowners insurance?
Oh, man, that's a big question, but there's a lot. But, the one thing that comes to mind is more of this day and age with the internet, right? With all of these carriers that go out and they're like, get online and get and buy your insurance policy, this and that, right? And yeah, that's a great concept, but the thing is we have to be licensed to sell insurance in the state of Texas, right? Actually, every state you have to be licensed to sell insurance. So, and there's a reason for that, and the reason is because we actually need to break down the policy for you. And there's a lot of different ways to endorse policies with water coverages and foundation water coverages. The difference between ACV and RCV, and there's a lot of different ways that you can actually build your home policy, and that's not something that everybody will tell you about.
So that makes a lot of sense. You're not licensed if you go and buy an insurance policy off of online. You don't know what ACV, RCV endorsements really mean.
That's correct.
A chat bot can only tell you so much, and you might be like, hey, cheaper policy, no metal coverage, that sounds okay, that sounds great.
Yep. And a lot of the reason for that now is everybody thinks that a homeowner's policy or even an auto policy is like a one-size-fits-all, right? So insurance is one size fits all, and that could be farther from the truth, And so, depending on the type of house that you have and how big your house is and how old it is, and there's a lot of different factors that go into play there when you start building your home policy. And so talking to an actual professional, that does this on a daily basis is something that personally I would feel more comfortable with as well. And for instance, before I got into insurance, I mean, especially with my home policy and my my auto policies, nobody had ever gone over the difference between policy limits and all that kind of stuff, right? So before I got into insurance, it's many years ago when I was younger, I fell victim to the whole insurance one size fits all is right? I always thought that if I had this, I would be covered no matter what, because the agent that I bought the insurance from never explained the limits to me, especially on your auto insurance policy. There's different limits that you can buy, and that's basically what your policy pays out up to if something was to happen. I didn't know that. It would have been nice to know, because come to find out, for a lot of times, especially on my auto policy, I had the lowest limits possible. Had I would have known, I would have actually bumped it up, and I would have paid a little bit more for the higher limits to make sure that my family and I were covered. And along with my home policy, I didn't know that you had endorsed water coverages. So, I didn't have foundation or leakage or seepage on my home policy. Luckily, I never had a claim, so it wasn't something that really affected me or hurt me. But if I would have, then it would have put me in a difficult position. And again, that's one of those things to where I wish the agent would have talked to me about and told me, hey, that these are the different options, these are the different endorsements and all that kind of stuff.
So in roofing in Texas, we're seeing a lot of policies being actual cash value or ACV in some type of way on the roofs, and RCV on the rest of the policy. We mentioned these terms like everybody knows them. Let's like
clarify that a little bit.
Clarify it for all the homeowners and new homeowners, because ACV, RCV, before I got into roofing, I didn't really know, and I didn't know how it worked. So what's the difference between actual cash value, ACV, and replacement cost value, RCV, and why should homeowners care?
So replacement cost is basically going to be, so for instance, if you have your roof, so just say you have a house, and replacement cost is you have a hailstorm comes through, you pay your deductible, and then the roofing company puts the new roof on your home, right? So that's replacement cost. Basically replacing what you lost minus your deductible. Now, actual cash value is going to basically be, they have to take in depreciation. So say, for instance, the roof was rated at a 30-year roof. And every carrier kind of does a little bit different on the valuations. They kind of set those, and they have a schedule of exactly how that goes. And they're all a little different, but actual cash value basically takes in consideration the depreciation. So it's, you would basically take the value minus the depreciation, minus your deductible, and then that's what the insurance company would pay out.
So the RCV one, it could be a $30,000 roof, and they pay out $30,000 minus your $5,000 deductible.
Yes.
They're going to pay out $25,000. The homeowner is out $5,000.
$5,000. Uh-huh.
So that same roof is 10 years old. Now the homeowner is looking at, instead of a $30,000 claim, it's still a $30,000 claim. They have a $5,000 deductible, and then they have about $10,000 extra out of their pocket.
Say if it was depreciation, so if the depreciation schedule basically said, hey, it's $10,000 is the depreciation on this 30-year roof, well, then at that point, you would basically take out the $10,000 for depreciation, the $5,000 deductible, and then that's what the insurance carrier would pay out of pocket, and then the consumer, the homeowner, would be responsible for the difference.
Yeah, we see a lot of those ACV policies or roof schedule policies becoming a lot more popular in our area of Texas, at least.
In North Texas, absolutely. And this is, the insurance world in a whole is, we're kind of coming out of what they call a hard market, right? So the last several years, a lot of carriers have been very unprofitable. Ever since COVID, the last several years, with the cost of the inflation, cost of labor, lumber, and everything that's kind of gone through the roof, it's really put a lot of these carriers in a hard spot. They haven't been profitable. So we've seen a lot of them make changes in the last several years, and some of that has been from wind and hail deductibles on roof here in North Texas Some have gone from 1% to 2%. Some have gone from 2% to 3%. So every carrier has different limits. But, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, your average wind and hail deductible was 1% here in North Texas. And now your average deductible, wind and hail deductible, is 2%. And in some cases, it's a little bit higher than that.
Wow. Yeah, we've worked in Central Texas, and some of them were $250, $500, $1,000.
Yep.
Not a percentage of the home value. I've also seen with inflation, home values have gone way up. So your
Through the roof.
deductible that maybe your home was valued at $250,000, now it's valued at $400,000. You're jumping up to a $4,000 deductible for 1%, $8,000 for 2%. So
it absolutely does, and that brings up another good point, Sean, is that a lot of folks out there that have had their home policy for several years. It is also good to look at it to make sure that, hey, the replacement cost of my home is still what my coverage A limit is still. Make sure they'll still align, right? Because for instance, if you have this inflation in someone's home, they've had this home policy, say, for 5 or 10 years or something like that. And, 10 years ago, it didn't quite cost this much to rebuild that same home. And nowadays, it does cost more to replace that, to replace the home. So you really want to make sure that your coverage A dwelling limit is up there and is right.
I would hate to be caught off guard with them only limiting out at $250, and then now it costs $450,000 to replace the home if a fire happened.
And it puts the homeowner in a really bad position if that's the case. Yeah, absolutely.
So if someone gets hit by hail tomorrow or a water disaster on their home, what should they do step by step?
Absolutely. So the first thing that you want to do is, so if it's a hailstorm, first off, guys, call Sean. Reason for that is he'll come out and kind of give you an honest opinion of whether there's actually enough damage to the roof. The last thing you really want to do is call and make a claim right away without having somebody come out and actually look at it. And the reason I say that, guys, is that if a hailstorm comes through tonight and you call tomorrow to make a claim, basically once you call the carrier to make that claim, it shows that you've made this claim. Whether they pay out or not, it shows that you've made a claim at this point.
I agree. We have a lot of instances where homeowners file a claim and it damages a couple items like the fence stain, and their deductible is $5,000, but their fence stain's only worth $3,500, and the roof withstood it. And so you could have a claim against you, and those stay around for 3 years, maybe 5 years.
3 to 5 years, and some of them affect your premiums, and some of them don't. But it could potentially affect the eligibility with some different carriers, because some carriers will basically say, "Hey, you're only allowed 2 claims in 3 years, or 3 claims," or every carrier is a little different. But it could absolutely be the difference of being eligible to place your homeowner's policy with a particular carrier or not.
And once they see that damage on your gutters or fence stain, and they estimate it for $3,500, even though it's below the deductible, they've already technically made whole on that, because the next time you get hit with hail, they don't pay for your gutters or the fence stain all the time.
And not just that, Sean, but actually here's a prime example. And I've got a client with me, he's been with me for the last couple of years. And his renewal just came up, and so we just rewrote his policy from one carrier to the next, right? And this same thing happened to where basically his roof was a little older, so it didn't quite pay out enough really to replace the roof. So the client decided to go ahead and pay for his own roof out of pocket, which he did. So he did that, which is great. So now I rewrote him with a different carrier, right? And basically the underwriter emailed me that same day and said, "Whoa, has the roof been replaced? We see a 0 paid claim. The imagery shows that the roof is older. We need to see proof that the roof has actually been replaced before we can proceed with this."
So we've been hearing a lot about insurance dropping homeowners for having an old roof. Have you heard that quite a bit on your side of it.
So I haven't necessarily heard them of dropping them. Actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. I have, but what I've seen quite a bit is with some carriers they'll basically take you from replacement cost to actual cash value. So a lot of carriers do have an age limit. So some carriers it could be 8 years. Some carriers it's 5 or 6. Some carriers it's 10. Depending on the carrier is going to be dependent on the guidelines. But most carriers do actually have an actual age to where they cut off and say you're not eligible for replacement cost anymore.
So roundabout number, what would you say that number is? Around 8 to 10 years, or it's on average?
Yeah, I'd say average. Average is probably going to be about 8 years now.
So eight years, you're gonna experience your homeowner's policy become what we might call, for layman's terms, like a prorated policy on the roofing.
On the roof,
What are some red flags homeowners should watch when dealing with storm chasers?
Oh man, there's a lot of them out there these days, right? A lot of people have gotten into the roof industry and fly by night, and it seems like the last couple of years, just every couple of months, you see one in the newspaper of this person went to jail for fraud, this person went to jail for fraud, and so my biggest recommendation would be, guys, is deal with someone local. Deal with somebody that's in your community day in and day out and knows your community. That office is in your community. Someone like Sean. Someone that knows the area. Someone that's been around for a little while. Look at the reviews. So that would be my recommendation. Is just when it comes to that, deal with someone local. You don't want to deal with someone that's traveled from out of state just to come in and try and get all these claims.
Do you ever see sometimes it's necessary for the out-of-state folks who are coming in, like 2021, we had the frozen pipes. I feel like us Texas contractors can handle it, but there was a lot of mitigation companies from all over the country coming to help out.
Yeah, and maybe just because the storm was so big and it was nationwide, they heard about it. And I've got family up in Idaho, and I was up in Idaho that summer and talking to a guy at the pool store, and he was just like, man, we don't like you guys from Texas right now, just because all the pool filters and the filtration systems and everything, they were all out of them. They couldn't find them because everybody they were all coming here to help repair all the pools.
I had a pool guy looking for green pools on the around the figs because everybody's pool was breaking those years.
Yep. And so, and that brings up too is, our soil, our soil's a little different here. Something that a lot of people don't understand is that with the slab foundations that we have here, they shift, right? They do shift. And so sometimes that can cause issues.
So, if someone hasn't reviewed their insurance in years, what risk might they have?
So if they haven't reviewed their policy in years, the first thing I would want to look at is let's look at your coverage A dwelling limit, right? So is it sufficient to what the actual market says that it's going to take to rebuild your home if there was a loss on your property? Secondly is let's say, how old is your roof? Do we have replacement cost? Is it scheduled at actual cash value basis? Also, water coverages, foundation water coverage, you have your leakage and seepage, things like that. Some carriers have even gone from sudden and accidental water coverage going from 100% of coverage A limit to, maxing out at $10,000.
They did that with mold too, I think. They completely exclude it or they limit it.
Some of them have as well. So there's really a lot. And Sean, this is really the difference between me, what I like to think is between a lot of other agents out there, is I really come from an informative stance. Whether you decide to do business with me or not, as a licensed professional, I really want to look at your policy and make sure that, hey, you're sufficiently covered, right? If you're in a good spot and you have a good policy, I'll be the first one to tell you. But at the same hand, hey, if I see something wrong with it or if I see something that could replace, I want to tell you about it as well. So, because again, when it comes to the auto limits, on the automotive side and the leakage and the seepage and the coverage A limit and all that kind of stuff, right? So we can always just sit down and have a conversation of, hey, this policy looks good, or I would do this or do this or do this or do this differently. And right now is a really good time to do that. And the reason being is because I spoke about this earlier about being in a hard market, right? So we're kind of on the tail end of that, and we're hearing that a lot of these big carriers are going to start having program changes soon. So they're coming to the market with more capacity in DFW, which means they want to write more business. And with that being said, eventually I think that we might see some premium decreases. Can't guarantee it, but we're hoping to kind of see some of that. Will we see it this year? I don't know. I'm hopeful. But with that being said, too, is, 5 years ago, the average home premium in the state of Texas was $1,800. And now the average home premium in the state of Texas today is over $3,500, right? And so a lot of people have kind of been priced out of that. So a lot of agents have made changes to these to home policies to help get that premium down, right? So whether they lower their coverage A limit, whether they raise deductibles, whether they lower or they remove water coverages, all that kind of stuff, right? So I've seen a lot of changes made to homeowners policies. So now would be a really good time to look at your policy and let's make sure that you have sufficient coverage. Make sure that you're covered properly.
So how big of an effect is the roofing on the premium cost on insurance? I see that we replace roofs, and we typically tell the homeowner, hey, give your insurance guy a call after you replace your roof. There's sometimes a new roof discount, a class 4 shingle discount, and we see them go from $5,000 back down to $3,200 sometimes because their roof age and the type of shingle that you use.
Oh, absolutely. So the type of shingle you use can make a difference, and the age of the roof does make a difference as well. Now, fair warning, some carriers it's not a big difference, right? Some carriers it's not a big deal. Their pricing isn't on the age of the roof. Now, there are some carriers that, yes, pricing is very dependent on the age of the roof, and it can make a huge difference. So say your roof is 10 years old, and then you replace the roof, absolutely, it could make a big difference in premium.
So we're talking about hail a lot. We got hail forecasted this week.
Tonight, I think, in some areas, yeah.
Yeah, tonight and Friday and Saturday. So Texas gets hammered with hail. How does that affect insurance premiums across the state?
So we start talking into a lot of depths there in the way that these carriers actually rate these policies, and there's a whole lot of factors that go into play there, and that's really above my pay grade. So that's hard to answer because
it's hard to.
But yes, it does play a role because a lot of these carriers, they do have to carry reinsurance for their insurance, right? So the cost of their insurance is dependent on a lot of that stuff as well, which means that the way they price our policies is part of that as well. But as far as how much and the difference, I don't have those kind of numbers.
I wouldn't expect you. I would say if the hailstorms like across the whole state, then we know it's going up.
Oh, absolutely.
If it hits 1 million homes, then we're going to be in trouble.
So maybe not right away because, these carriers do have to actually get approval through the state before they can adjust rates. So if they're an admitted carrier, they do have to get approval through the Texas Department of Insurance before they start raising those rates. And the one good thing about homeowners is your rate is, once we lock your policy into place, that rate is guaranteed for the next 12 months. So you know that you're not going to have a rate increase.
So what happens if someone waits too long to file a claim?
It may not be covered at that point too. So some carriers, every carrier most carriers are 12 months. Some carriers are 6 months. It just depends on their programs. But if you kind of wait until you're outside that window, it's not covered. They don't necessarily have to cover it.
Wow. And then it might be hard to reinsure or renew or.
Then it would be, because now at this point you would need to replace that yourself. Yes.
And so we've seen commercial policies, they drop the customer right before the 12 months. And luckily they're trying to renew. Their agent calls us to inspect it, and we're like, hey, you got hail damage. They're like, oh, I didn't know. And then they file a claim, but it's on the old insurance, and then their new insurance is a little bit lower cost. But I've seen a lot of commercial roofs get dropped after really big hailstorms right around the 8-month mark to the 12-month mark. And I'm like, well, it's kind of good they dropped them instead of dropping them at 13 month when they don't
When it
have
was too late,
when
yeah.
it's too late to file.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to keep going in on this. What advantages of working with an independent insurance agent like you instead of going directly to a carrier?
Yeah. So first thing is you build a relationship. With a lot of these bigger companies these days, you call an 800 number and you sit on the phone and you sit on wait for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever the case may be, and you have to go through every time you call back, you talk to somebody else in the phone trees and all that kind of stuff. And the bright side about using someone like me is you're always going to call my office and you're going to talk to me or someone in my office directly, and you're going to get a hold of us very quickly.
Awesome.
And you're always going to talk to the same person also, and so we like to build that relationship. But that's not the only thing too, is, who likes to shop for insurance? Nobody does. This day and age, when you have internet, if you go in and you put your information out there, you have 100 different agents calling you, for the next 3 months, right? And they're just consistently calling you. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like to get those phone calls, right? And
and health insurance.
Yes. It's just as like the car dealerships too, right? You start shopping for a car, you put your phone number in there, and you get blown up. Yeah. So the bright side about using someone like myself is I have all of the markets already, right? So at this point, once you build a relationship with me and you have your homeowners policy within my agency, at this point in time, say if this one carrier decides to have an increase or make changes, or they decided to leave the Texas market or whatever the case may be, instead of you having to go back out there and talk to 100 different people and get blown up for the next 3 months, I'm able to do all of that for you. So you don't have to talk to anybody different. You don't have to go on the line. And a lot of times I'm going to notice this before you even do. So I'm going to be the one calling you saying, hey, look, we saw this increase.
We've seen this with customer A, B, and C.
And
we're finding a better solution for most people with this age of roof, age of house.
And so for the most part, I'm calling you beforehand saying, hey, I have a better option for you. So instead of doing this at this point, we're gonna transfer you and we're gonna go this route right here. So I kind of do all the work on the back end for you.
Awesome. So what are some things people think are covered that actually aren't covered?
So a lot of times, especially with some of the changes that these carriers have made, cosmetic damage isn't necessarily covered anymore. Typically 10 years ago, it wasn't a big deal. Everything would get replaced, right, when you're replacing a roof. But nowadays, a lot of carriers are not replacing anything just for cosmetic damage. It actually needs to be, there needs to be actual enough damage to where it's causing something functional
like
before they'll actually replace
dings
it.
In the gutters and chimney caps and stuff
That's
like that. They want to see a chimney cap like crunched in from hail, or or a gutter like not draining correctly because of hail, or
functionality needs to be done. Yep.
So cosmetic, lots of little dings around our house. A lot of that's not going to be covered on future policies, and we see that a lot with a lot of insurance carriers. They'll have soft metals not covered. What kind of policies do you guys specialize in?
So, I mean, we specialize in my agency. We basically, our bread and butter is really, is your homeowners, is all your personal lines. So we do homeowners and we do auto insurance, and we'll do your boats and your RVs and your motorcycles and all your toys, right? We do a little bit of small commercial, general liability, and then we can do some commercial auto as well. So, your pest control companies and things like that, we can write those as well.
Do you do life insurance?
No, I do not do life insurance. So I work with someone that I do refer that out to, but I don't do any of that in-house.
Who's your ideal client?
Just your average family, your parents out there, your people out there that own a home, people that have cars, and your growing family as well. So that way, when your kids become a driving age, we can cover them. And, when you want to go out and buy your RVs or your motorcycles and your boats, we can help you cover all those as well.
Do you guys like new construction or old homes, or it doesn't really matter? They're all you guys.
I love it all.
Love it all.
I love it all. Right. So every home needs a policy. So every home deserves to be covered, and so whether it's an older home or a newer home, we have a market for all of them.
What are some of the trickiest ones to insure? Or the most expensive? Tricky, most expensive.
Some of the smaller ones right now. Some of your smaller homes that are really old. That were built in the 20s, 30s, or 50s, or something like that in that area. That really haven't been brought up to date. Those are a little more difficult to insure, and those typically tend to be a little more pricey as well.
Can you explain a reason coming from the insurance side of it, why those would be more expensive?
There's more risk there.
Exactly.
It's all more risk when your home hasn't been updated. Especially you don't know what's behind the walls. Asbestos. Sometimes you don't know if things have been taken care of.
Pipes that might be rusting out, about to fail.
That could be it too.
We've seen cast iron pipes rust out in the attic, and then they start leaking into the home.
That, and in general, though, I mean, I will say this: a new construction home is always going to be cheaper to insure than your older home. So the newer the home, typically the better premium that you're going to get. But
awesome. If someone wants to review their insurance policy, what's the easiest way to contact you?
Give me a shout directly. My direct phone number is 817-803-2248. Again, 817-803-2248. Or you can even shoot me an email at jeff.lund, Lund, at betrinsurance.com, spelled BETTR, insurance.com.
And I like to go to, I have a shotgun blast of questions now.
Okay.
These are my fun ones sometimes. So we'll just ask questions, try to give a quick answer, and just top of mind answer. The most misunderstood thing about insurance is blank.
Most understood thing, huh?
Misunderstood. Sorry.
I guess insurance, it's one size fits all.
Size fits all.
That's
the biggest mistake homeowners make with their insurance is blank.
Not contacting a reputable agent, just going online and doing it yourself.
Talking to a bot, picking the cheapest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Chicken.
Not explaining everything to you, right? It goes back to you kind of get what you pay for, right? So
when you said you had to have a license to sell insurance, I immediately thought you don't need a license to buy it off of line, and that stinks if you think about it, because you have to learn a lot of stuff to sell insurance. There's a lot of insurance talk or legal talk, because insurance is a contract.
It is. Oh, absolutely, it is.
And so you kind of have to know legal terms in contract world when reading your policy, and I read policies here and there, and I'm like, what the heck does this mean? I have to read it 3 times.
Yeah, sometimes if you're not used to looking at it, you don't know what it is. And hey, I felt for that too. I mean, back, many years ago, before I got into insurance, I didn't know any of this myself.
Yep. After a big Texas hailstorm, the first thing homeowners should do is blank.
Call Sean, guys.
Nice.
Call Sean.
A good insurance agent should always blank.
Oh, take care of their clients. That's the biggest thing, right? Is explain everything to every client. In this day and age, we go from it's all about price, right? Every time you turn on the commercial and you hear Geico or you hear Progressive or you hear this, they always talk about price, but they never talk about coverages, right? So, price is important, absolutely, but you also want to make sure that you're covered the proper way, right? So, that's one thing that we, again, pride ourselves on is making sure that we educate each and every one of our clients. So that way they know exactly what they're getting for what they're paying for.
Yeah, what they're in for when some disaster strikes.
Uh-huh.
The worst insurance advice someone could follow is blank.
The worst?
Yeah, the worst.
The worst. That's a good question. Get online and just buy the cheapest policy. Or get statements. I liability only. I just need liability only.
Yep. If homeowners understood their policies better, they would probably blank.
Most of them, they'd probably be willing to pay a little bit more for the endorsements. Because it always comes down to a price point, right? You get what you pay for, so absolutely, you can find the cheapest policy out there, and we can really take it down and get it down to the bones. But you know what? When people start understanding what the real coverage is in the risk that they're at without having that coverage,
they'll normally spend more.
Absolutely.
And be covered more.
Be covered more, yeah.
Better value for their buck.
Yeah, absolutely.
A roof and an insurance policy are similar because blank.
A roof and an they both got to be looked at, right? You got to look at your roof, and again, we always recommend looking at your insurance policy to make sure that you're actually covered the proper way.
I like that. I was thinking, trying to think of a way in my head to compare them to, but that's the best way I could think of.
It's something you need, right? So you need a good roof on your home because it protects you from the outdoor elements, right?
Yep.
And same thing with your insurance policy. It protects your prized valuables. Your biggest investment that you'll ever make is typically a home and your cars, right? So why not cover them properly?
If your insurance policy is cheaper than everyone else's, it probably means blank.
Could mean a lot of things. Could mean that you're actually with as long as the agent has done their due diligence and actually written the policy the proper way. Because when it comes to pricing, again, it's not one size fits all. So it's more of a, depending on your insurance score, because rating goes off of that as well, goes off of location, the age of your roof, the age of your home. So there's a lot of different factors that go into play there. But it could potentially mean that you're not covered properly.
Yep.
Potentially.
So if it's cheaper than all your neighbors, you might want to reach out and check your coverage. Make sure you might have an awesome agent, or you might have under coverage.
You could, and guys, right now, for everyone listening to this, is it's something I would recommend is, at this point in time, look at your insurance policy. Have it, call me. Call another trusted agent and make sure that you're properly covered. Let's look at the way it's written.
The most surprising claim you've ever seen was blank.
Probably just, it wasn't crazy because it does happen quite a bit, but just water claims. When pipes start bursting, things like that, you see quite a bit of damage. And then I did have one, I guess about a year ago, I had a lightning strike that caused a small fire in the home. Caused quite a bit of damage just from the lightning strike.
We had one we thought was wind, but I believe it was claimed under lightning. A 40-foot chimney fell into the house.
Oh, into the house?
A brick chimney fell into the media room. And then a couple days later, that fell into the living room.
Yep, the small things can turn into big damage real quick.
I had on one claim, I know we had a customer claim his grass was damaged. That was not the whole claim. The claim was hail, broke all the windows on the front yard.
But he
And
claimed the grass too.
the grass, because of all the glass shards and the landscaping, he was scared that his kids were going to step on it. So,
Okay.
very, very interesting claim. They didn't pay it as replacing the grass. They paid it as
There are
clean up
sublimits. Yep.
something. They paid enough and clean up to get the guy some new grass.
Yeah, so a lot of things like that, like your bushes and shrubs and grass and things like that, they could potentially be covered, but depending on the carrier, there's going to be some sublimits.
Yep.
It's not like you're going to get your whole yard resodded or anything like that. There are some sublimits there.
The one thing every homeowner should check on their policy today is blank.
Water coverages and replacement costs versus actual cash value.
Yep, I agree. Okay, now we got some, not fill in the blank, but these are just quick ones. Hail claim or wind claim, which one's worse?
A lot of those kind of turn into the same, depending on the storm. And that's really more of I wouldn't say one's worse than the other. They're rated the same.
Yeah, sometimes windstorms, you might not have a claim because it's only a couple shingles, but then you have tornadoes that
They really
rips
do,
up
yeah.
half the house apart.
So, but typically wind and hail, a lot of times, depending on how the actual adjuster, pays it out, but they're all going to be rated the same that way.
So, deductible or premium? What's something to, which one do you want to save money on, or which one do you want to pay more money on?
Yeah, so those are kind of, really, they kind of go with each other, because typically the higher your premium, the higher deductible, the lower your premium is going to be, right? And then the lower your deductible, the higher your premium is going to be. So a lot of times there are premium factors depending on how we write that.
Independent agent or direct carrier?
Independent agent all day long.
Awesome, I agree. Paper policy or digital?
Digital. We do everything. So my agency is set up electronically. So we don't do anything. We can always have the carrier send out the actual policy packet to you. But as far as documents and e-signatures and all that kind of stuff, payments, we do everything electronically these days.
Yeah, I would say searchable PDF is awesome for policies. If you have a claim and it has some funky thing where you need a PA or attorney involved, searchable PDF, they can search exclusions really quickly.
Uh-huh. And if you have questions too, absolutely. There's a lot of times you can just kind of put in the term and it'll pull up how many times every time that word appears in that, because some of these policy packages are 110 pages long.
Most of them are 75 to 110
Yep.
pages.
So they're very long for sure.
Coffee or energy drink?
I'm more energy drink, I guess. I don't really do either. I'm not a coffee drinker. Energy drink, not big on those either.
I'm not big on either one of them, but just had to ask.
I
Favorite Texas barbecue?
Oh man, Texas barbecue. Hard 8.
Hard 8.
I like Hard 8. Yeah, Hard 8 and Spring Creek too.
Hard 8 and Spring Creek.
Yeah.
Have you had Hutchins?
I have not.
Oh, you need to try them. They're in Trophy Club. That's probably the close one. They have one in Frisco too.
Okay.
But I've had them and I was like, ooh, this is something.
Yeah, that was good, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Worst insurance myth?
I've said this a couple times, but insurance is one size fits all.
Yep. I was going to say, it sounds so familiar to one of my other questions or twice. One thing every homeowner should do this year.
Look at your insurance policy, guys. Again, with the way the market's been the last couple of years and kind of where we're headed and the way the market's turning a little bit, I would highly recommend having your current policy looked at. Let's make sure that you have the proper coverages, and not just that, but the best premium, right? So let's shop it around a little bit and see if we can't save you some money.
One thing contractors should understand about insurance.
Contractors about insurance. I would say, as far as typically what we see a lot is just more, it's more deductibles. I don't think a lot of contractors know the difference between RCV or ACV and things like that, and the deductibles and things like that the homeowner may be faced with when they were quoting things out.
When they're about to file a claim. Good. I would say the same thing. Before you file a claim, the homeowner should know what they're getting into and know the extent of the damage.
And guys, and just like I've said here, and I've said, is it's just as important to make sure that you have a trusted roofer, just as much it is to make sure that you have a trusted insurance agent. And the reason being is because a good roofer, your trusted roofer, can really make sure that you're in the right spot. Again, because you can have Sean come out, take a look at your roof, and if there's nothing wrong with it, he'll tell you. Or if it does need to replace, he'll tell you that as well. And that's when he can give me a call, or my client gives me a call and says, hey, we need to make a claim. And that's when we can start the process for you. But you don't want that claim showing up on your clear report if it's not going to get paid out.
Yeah, or if it's going to be a fight till no end. Or a very low valued claim, like the deductible and the depreciation are more expensive than the claim value.
Yep.
So, best advice for first-time homeowners.
Give me a call. Let me educate you on this whole process. Because again, I'm not going to just write a policy for you and throw you out to the wolves and, here you go, or make you guess if you're covered or not. Give me a shout. Let me go over this with you with a fine-tooth comb, and that way you know exactly what you're getting for what you're paying for. You know what's covered. You know what's not covered.
Awesome. Most underrated home protection upgrade.
Underrated, maybe a water sense cutoff valve. A lot of carriers these days for your water sensor cutoffs. We're actually giving some discounts for that.
Awesome. I don't have one of those on my house that I know of, so.
That's kind of a newer thing that some of these carriers are starting to do, is give discounts for those.
We've already mentioned this. Storm chasing contractors, good or bad?
Bad.
Bad. Most confusing insurance term.
Oh, there's a ton of them. I don't know if I could just name off one. There are quite a few that if you're not in the industry and you start to hear these, like for instance, subrogation. Do people know what subrogation is? Do they not? Yeah. So there's a lot of different terms that we could sit here and talk about that we use in the insurance world that that I didn't know too prior to getting in insurance.
So now that we put subrogation out there, you got to tell us what it is.
So subrogation is easiest thing to put it is, especially say on the auto side. If you're if you were to hit somebody and you didn't have enough coverage, basically, and that other insurance company pays out, they can subrogate and they can come after you for the damages they paid out on your behalf.
I've heard it also when a dishwasher floods your house. If it was a new dishwasher, they might go after the appliance.
The appliance manufacturer. Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, it's their subrogation of liability to another party.
Or if the roof is installed wrong, they might come after the contractor that installed it.
Absolutely.
So, one word to describe Texas weather.
If you don't like it, wait 2 hours. It's crazy here. There's some days, especially this time of year, you really have to look at the weather before you leave the house. I've been caught multiple times leaving the house and wearing shorts, and it's 80, 90 degrees, and by the end of the day, it's 30.
Well, it's just like when we have a big hailstorm I know now, the first few years, I'd be like, oh, it was such great weather yesterday. I'm going to wear shorts, short sleeve. But now after a hailstorm, I normally know, hey, a cold front came in, and it might be a chilly morning the next day.
Yep, yep.
So you're getting home from the grocery store. You got like 10, 15 bags of groceries, and do you take multiple trips to save your arms and your forearms, or do you lug it all in?
Load me up. Load me up. I'm going to get as much as I can and get them in the house.
Nice. One trip champ.
Yeah.
So far, we're all one trip champs. That'll change sometime on the podcast, but every guest so far likes to bring them all in one shot if they can.
Yeah, you know what? I do that. My wife gives me heck sometimes. One time I did drop a gallon of milk, and it busted all over the driveway. And now, now I get crap for it every time I'm loading up the groceries.
Yeah, I have multiple kids, so my wife's like, "Hey, let the kids carry some in." So I do one trip, but I do give the cereal boxes to my young ones.
Yep,
The
yep.
light stuff.
Let
Well,
them help a little bit.
It was awesome having you, Jeff. If someone watching this wants to make sure their home is properly protected, what should they do next?
Just give me a shout. Give me a call. My direct phone number is 817-803-2248. Again, 817-803-2248. Give me a shout, and I'll make it easy for you.
And if you could recommend, or if you'd like to see someone else on my podcast, can you throw a name out there that you think would be a great podcast guest?
Shakur.
I already had Shakur.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to do another one now. He was a great guest.
Okay. Oh man. I can't think of one business owner off the top of my head right now that I could recommend.
Okay. Well, you can email me or text me.
Yeah, I'll email you. Yes.
Either way, just shoot it out there. That's one of my newer questions. Wanted to put you on the spot. Should have put that one. Gave you some.
Gave you some advance on that one. Yeah.
Next time I'll give you some advance. But I thought it would be nice to put you on the spot. So thanks, guys, for watching. Hopefully, you guys learned a lot about insurance, ACV, RCV, subrogation, and all the boring stuff about insurance. Skip all reading the policy and call Jeff. Let him do the dirty work for you. Shop around on the insurance policies